Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nelson Nightline, Shock Cable's live bi-monthly phone-in talk show. I'm Morrie Zaitlin, and I'll be your host tonight, along with my regular co-host, Marianne Bond. Nelson and area residents create more than 9,000 tons of waste each year, and for far too long, many of us had a simplistic approach to handling this garbage, simply putting it out on the curb and having a garbage truck come by and take it away. According to the BC Ministry of Environment, about 98% of our municipal solid waste is dumped into landfills. At this rate, they estimate that within 10 years, 6 out of every 10 landfills will be used up. Tonight, with our special guest Mike Jessen, the RDC Recycling Coordinator, and Hans Cunningham, Director of Area G for the RDCK and Chair of the RDCK Refuse Commission, we are going to examine some alternative ways of solving this serious environmental problem. We also have later on this evening Janine Keeling-Hemphill, also on the RDCK's Recycling Commission as an area rep for Nelson, and herself an avid home recycler. And as always, we will feature street interviews in downtown Nelson where locals have expressed their opinions on tonight's topic. But before we start, I'd like to introduce my co-host tonight, Marianne Bond, and our first two guests, Hans Cunningham and Michael Jessen. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Morrie.
Good evening, Morrie.
Good evening. Earlier this week, our Nelson Nightline film crew went out to the RDCK Recycling Depot on Front Street for a tour of the facility. We're going right now to show you this clip and then come back for a chat with our two guests.
Michael, you're Michael Jessen. You're the recycling coordinator. Is that your
That's
title?
correct, yeah.
And you run this operation with how many people?
There are myself and 5 others, full-time and 1 part-time.
1 part-time. The magnitude. What can you receive here? How much do you receive here? What can't you receive here?
The magnitude. There is potentially 27% of our waste stream is recyclable easily with the type of materials that we take here. That includes corrugated cardboard, newspaper, flyers, office paper, letterhead, envelopes, brown paper bags, glass bottles and jars, tin cans, aluminum cans, such as you see baled behind us here. Those are the basic materials that we take, including things like hardcover books, paperbacks, government reports. That's our bread and butter. We recycled out of this depot 729 tons last year. This year we're going to go over 1,000 tons. That means that we're going to be recycling about 10 to 12% of Nelson and area's waste stream. As I said, we could do 27%. So we've got a long way to go, even though we're doing very well.
So how does this stuff come into you? Is it pre-sorted, or do you have to sort it? What is the value of sorting?
That's the big challenge for people when they start recycling, because of course you remember that when you throw out garbage it all goes in one can, whereas when you recycle you need to separate it into the various components. They need to be clean in order to be able to be sold to the marketplace. They need to be sorted. The colored paper needs to be separated from the white. The computer needs to be sorted from the other paper because it's worth 3 times as much. So the people who buy the product from us want it clean, want it sorted well. Any contamination in it, even on the level of 1%, for instance, with glass, they can't buy it. So it's very important that people sort as well as they can at home or in their workplace.
You say you shipped out 100 tons of material. You've sold that.
We've sold, last year we sold 706 tons. The year before it was we've sold over 1,500 tons in the time we've been here. That's probably the easiest way to answer it.
What percentage of your revenue, your operating revenue, would come from sales?
We're currently pulling in somewhere around 15% of our budget is coming from revenue from sales. We might do better than that by year end. It'll be interesting to see. It's gone up every year. It's improving. And if anyone is interested in a comparison, the landfill only brings in 2% or less of its budget from fees that are charged to people for dumping their garbage.
Do you predict that that percentage will go up over the years?
I would predict that it basically needs to go up because it's an inequitable system currently. The person who produces very little garbage is perhaps taxed the same amount as the person who produces a lot. And I believe the provincial government is moving towards a user pay type of system, and I think in the coming years we'll probably see that entering our local garbage and recycling system as well.
And that will affect your bottom line quite considerably when that system comes into place.
Well, for instance, I did some calculations last year, and if you combined the material that was sent to the landfill from the Nelson Salmo area with the recyclables, we got somewhere in the neighborhood of 9,900 tons. And if we had charged 4 cents a pound to get rid of the garbage portion of our waste stream, we would have recovered the $800,000 that we spent on landfilling and recycling.
Who buys recyclables?
The recyclables, we have a contract for all of our paper products with a company in Vancouver. They are so impressed with the quality of material that we're providing, because we have a reputation for providing non-contaminated material, that they pay for the shipping down to Vancouver. So we get paid FOB our door. So all our cardboard, newspaper, and office paper goes to Paperboard Industries in Vancouver. Our tin cans and aluminum cans go to companies in Seattle, Washington. And we have just recently started sending our glass as well to a company in California. Basically, our attitude with regard to selling is we'd like to sell in Canada and British Columbia first, but we also recognize that we need to generate the best revenue possible for the taxpayers of the region. And if we can get a better price by finding another market, then that's part of my job, is to find better markets and keep in touch with the marketplace.
One man's fish is another man's poisson. What do you get here that immediately appeals to you and cannot be thrown away? You cannot throw away. Do you get rare books? Do you get items, collectible items, this kind of thing?
We get a few of that, not a great deal, but we do get some of that. Recently, I can recall a 1906 Encyclopedia Britannica being discarded by, I won't name who it was in the community. I think it was quite a rare and valuable edition, but nobody wanted it. The library didn't have room for it, and no one had room for it, so luckily we found it a new home.
Any rarities and mistakes come in? Do people suddenly realize that, my God, it's gone in the recycling, and come rushing down here and try and reclaim it?
Maybe not a rarity, but we quite regularly get people losing their car keys or their glasses and things like that, and most times we find them. Another thing we've come across over the years is checks that people have received that they have forgotten to cash, and they throw them in with their recyclable paper, so they can be thankful that we do spend a bit of time sorting here, because we've returned some cashable checks to people. What you see behind you is our stacks of newspaper. If you're wondering why we ask people to separate it into the newspaper by itself and the flyers by themselves, you'll see that we create separate piles of them. This room accommodates 16 tons of newsprint, and it takes us between 2 and 3 weeks to accumulate 16 tons, and then it gets shipped off to market. Each one of these bales produced by our baler weighs about 1,250 pounds. We make average about 3 of these a day, and it takes us about 9 days to accumulate a load of 14 tons to send out to the marketplace. So every 9 days these are going out. This is a bale of aluminum cans that we've made from our baler, and there are somewhere around 22,000 cans in that bale. It is the most valuable product that the recycling depot takes in. It's worth over $800 a ton to us, and we really would like to encourage people who perhaps don't need the refund on their cans, or those who are buying cans in the United States, to bring their aluminum cans to the recycling depot, because if we got all the aluminum cans that are generated in our area, we could provide about 35% of our budget through the revenue from their sale. It's actually quite amazing the number of textbooks that schools throw out each year. Just the number of books that people are wanting to get rid of is just astounding. I would hope that maybe in a new facility we would have room to put some of these books on a shelf for people to look through, and for a modest donation to the recycling operation they could have them.
Good idea.
Bottles that people bring us. We also save wine bottles for home winemakers. And to be honest with you, I bet you we could supply a small office with all of the rubber bands, paper clips, many other of their office supplies that they might need through stuff that comes in here. Composting can potentially divert about 25% of a household's garbage. So we are trying to encourage people to start composting their food and yard waste in their backyard. And to that end, we have bought a number of Earth Machine composters, which we're selling for $45. Basically, this unit works very simply. You just put it on the ground, you put some dirt in it, you add your food waste and dig it into the dirt, you put your yard waste on top, and worms come up out of the ground. They digest the food waste, and in 3 to 4 weeks you've got beautiful soil which can be put on your garden or for landscaping purposes, and you're sending less material to the land. Last year we sold over 300, and this year we've sold over 400.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Nelson Nightline. This month is Waste Reduction Month across the province of BC and here in Nelson as well. And as part of that, tonight our special guests are Michael Jessen, who runs the RDCK Recycling Depot, and Hans Cunningham, a director for Area G, and the RDCK chairman of the Refuse Commission. Good evening again, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Well, we saw on the show there your depot, and the thing that first curious for myself is all those cans. How do you squash them all together, Michael?
Well, we have a baling machine which does dual purpose. It's basically for the corrugated cardboard we collect from the downtown businesses, but we also just put the cans in the baler and make about a 400 to 450 pound bale.
So it's pressed together,
yeah.
and sealed, I guess.
Yeah, because aluminum is very light, it needs to be compressed so that we can economically ship it off to market.
And it's your most viable product, I guess.
It's the most valuable product, yeah.
Yes.
Over $800 a ton. With the exchange rate now, because we sell it in the U.S., it's probably worth over $900 a ton.
Great. And where's it
so
going?
Bring them down, folks.
Where's it going to?
They go to a company in Bellevue, Washington.
What do they turn it into? Do you have any idea?
Well, it just gets made right back into an aluminum can again. It's estimated that the aluminum can that you may be drinking your pop out of today, in 3 months' time it'll be back on the shelf again with pop in it.
Neat.
Well, I guess just a quick history lesson in terms of how long the recycling depot has been in operation and where it's funded by, or who it's funded by.
Of course,
Hans,
yes,
Michael?
by now, This area, the Nelson Selma EFG Refuse Commission, were the first in our regional district to actually have a recycling operation. The bylaw to start recycling in the area was first passed in, I believe, 1981. So 10 years and a bit ago. It's and we've had our recycling depot for about the last 3 years, I believe. Michael, is that right? 3 years now that we have been operating, and we're looking at expanding because, of course, with recycling, the more efficient we are, the cheaper it gets to be. And of course, we're also underneath those provincial government constraints. They say that we have to reduce the amount of waste going into our dumps by 20% by 1995, that's 3 years from now, and 50% by the year 2000. That means from 9,500 tons or whatever that we're hauling to our dumps now, we have to cut it back to, say, 4,000 tons. That's a lot of recycling and a lot of change in packaging and the associated things that go with it.
What else is happening in the rest of Central Kootenay?
In the other areas of Central Kootenay, such as Castlegar, they have voluntary recycling depots that are not funded at all. People come and use our facilities, and we have loaned our truck to Castlegar upon occasion so that they can conduct some of their recycling programs. Over on the far side of Kootenay Lake, there has been a private recycling operation, but it has not fared well of lately, although I understand there is a move afoot to get that going again. In actual fact, we are waiting now for the preparation of our waste management plan, and when it's done, we will probably be looking at a regional district-wide recycling program.
But right now, anyone up the valley or up to Castle, wherever in Central Kootenay, is welcome to come to the Nelson Depot. In fact, I would encourage it.
We do assist a lot of those small communities. Hans mentioned that we loan our truck to Castlegar. They have a once-a-month collection on the Safeway parking lot the first Saturday of every month. We've also loaned our truck to Caslow, for instance, to collect cardboard from their community, and they're also holding a once-a-month pickup in that community. We've loaned it to Luscombe, and they've had a couple of pickups this year, a couple of collection days. And we've also, we go up to New Denver and Silverton. There's a couple of depots there, one at the New Denver Works Yard and one in Silverton. And we're getting a pretty interesting volume of material from these little communities. The last load of material that we got out of New Denver Silverton was over 3 tons, and it just took them a month to get that material. And that performance is as well as we're doing sometimes from our Salmo depot. So maybe residents in Salmo should see if they can get going a little bit here to
You're throwing
get
a
some
challenge
competition
out,
going.
are you?
Yep.
Are we going to make the 95 forecast and reduce 20%? What's your gut?
Oh, that's very difficult to say because recycling is only one of the number of R's, and of course we have to think about reduce, and reduction of packaging is also a very important thing. Things like blister packs and so forth that are mainly packaging for a kid's toy with a blister pack like that. It's a waste in packaging. It comes into our dump, and the useful amount is very little. There is a national packaging protocol being looked at by the federal government. However, implementation is still a ways away. But we are looking at things like that, the political sphere, to do a lot in the area of reduction. Same with items like this, where we can reuse.
That's the second R.
That's it, yes, and that's very important. And Michael, I'm sure you would be willing to speak about the others.
Well, one of the reasons why we are having Waste Reduction Month is that I'm quite pleased to say that I think in Nelson we're doing very well with our recycling. We increased the amount of recyclables we took in 1991 over 1990 by over 345%. And so far in 1992 we're up about another 50%. So we're doing quite well. We estimate that possibly about half the people in this subregion are recycling.
And how are they doing that? Through what process? Through the education?
Well, we only have one drop-off location, so this is what makes those numbers quite acceptable. In other words, people in this area are really taking some personal responsibility, and I think that's the thing that we want to encourage, because in a place like Vancouver, they started with a blue box collection system where they started picking up recyclables at people's homes. They've now encountered the very high cost, and they're very seriously considering dropping the blue box system and having drop-off in various neighborhood locations.
Too
because
expensive to
it's
pick
too
up at every
expensive.
door.
Yeah, and it's not just too expensive, is that you're picking up so many different materials that all have to be put in their own little compartment on a truck, and it's just a logistical nightmare. If one compartment fills up before another, you got to take the truck in to get emptied. You know, it's just...
Where is the landfill, our local landfill? Where does the garbage go? We bring it down, a lot of garbage down to the waterfront, I know that. Where does it go from there?
That's my department. Okay, okay. We have a compactor on the waterfront, and that compactor, as you may know, has been quite a controversial thing because it's a waterfront compactor, and there are many people who feel the waterfront could be better used for other areas. However, the garbage is compacted at that site, then it's hauled to Selmo, to a dump site that is some 5 miles, I believe, outside of town, at an old mine tailings site up there in the hill. It costs us somewhere in the neighborhood of about $58 a ton to do that. So
to truck it
to truck it to Selmo from the Nelson-Selmo EFG areas. Our waste management study is looking at possibly other dump sites because no dumps has they all have a finite life, and let's face it, that's an awful cost because it's a long haul. The farthest haul being from Balfour all the way out to Selmo.
What is the lifespan of that dump then?
We're not sure, but we think somewhere in our studies so far say 10 years. When the dump was first created, it was only supposed to be a temporary one with a life of 1 year, but that's not what's happened. It's continued on. And there are many people who would say, listen, we don't really want it there. Yes. Those are all things we have to look at.
And nobody will want another dump site in their community, and it's an NIMBY problem.
Exactly.
That's why that I presume is the major reason to recycle, to reuse. There's no place to put all the garbage, and we're running short.
There is a hierarchy in the 3 R's, is that right?
Is there?
You'd first rather have people reduce, reuse, and then recycle.
Yeah, and that's what the provincial government has dictated to the regional district, that they must incorporate in their solid waste management plan, is that the first priority has to be reducing the problem. The second priority is to reuse as much as possible, and then to recycle the rest. Then we have to look at, can we do some type of energy recovery possibility as a fourth alternative, and then our fifth alternative is to landfill material.
Okay, well, the studio rather looks like your recycling depot here tonight, Michael. Do you want to take us on a little tour through what you brought and a little education for the public in terms of what you do accept, what you don't accept,
well,
so forth?
I would love to do that. That's an excellent opportunity for us to tell people how they can really help us. We have 6 employees at the recycling depot, and we're currently going to hire another part-time person. And a lot of what we do is straightening up the material that people bring in, or taking off the lids that they might be leaving on the jars, or their lids on the bottles.
Those aren't recyclable?
Those are not recyclable. These types of lids all have a plastic or rubber inner liner that's fused to the metal, so that makes that lid unrecyclable, unfortunately.
Is there any reuse for them at all?
We do save some of them because there are people that use jars for canning and things like that, so we keep a bucket full of some, but we can't take all of them, so please remember to take those off. As I mentioned, we really love to have aluminum, and this is the way we'd like people to bring in the can, not to bring it in like that. And the reason being that when we put it in the baler, as we described, the action of the baler crushing the cans together forces the cans to fold around one another when they're in this condition, but they don't do a lot of folding when they're like that.
Well, isn't that interesting? I would have thought you would have preferred them compacted already.
So you want them intact,
That's correct, yeah.
But cans, other types of cans?
Yes, we have a little display down at the foot of the table here where we have an unflattened can and as well as a flattened tin can.
Over there.
And that's the flattened way is the way we prefer them. The one that's unflattened is actually a rounded bottom can, which you can flatten if you do the recycling two-step on, and we're more than welcome to show people
like this.
how to do that.
These are harder to. Yeah. Well, I guess you cut off the lids on this at the beginning, but it's hard to cut off the lid on the rounded bottom.
You have to step on it twice. You step on it there, and that folds back forward, and then you just have to step on it again. You don't do it on your hardwood floor, of course.
So that's the recycle two-step, is that?
And don't forget your lids are recyclable, and you can throw them in with the tin can.
Well, good idea, because they're dangerous as well.
For people that have difficulty knowing whether it's aluminum or tin, and we do prefer you keep them separate, you could just use a little magnet that you might have on your refrigerator, and the aluminum is not attracted to the magnet, and the tin can will be attracted to it, and that's how you can tell the difference. Mm-hmm. We have some paper here. We get a lot of people saying, well, what can I put in your paper categories? It's really difficult, you know. And it's really hard to explain to people because there are over 50 different grades of paper. But if we follow some basic rules, we do take newspaper. We prefer that you keep the flyers and the smaller things like the Kokanee Express and the Pennywise, the television guides. We prefer that you keep them in a separate little bundle with separate from the newspaper. It's more of a size thing, and it's also because some of those colored flyers are quite slick when you put them in between the newspapers. If you leave them in there, we stack our newspapers and we load them in a loose fashion. It often causes us to drop them or the pile to fall over, and you know, we don't need extra work. So again, it's just little things that people can do to make our lives a lot easier.
The staples in some of these flyers, is that, do you want those
Staples are not a problem. No, there's a, what happens to the paper when it gets to the recycling mill, it'll be going into a giant blender about 3 stories high, and it'll be just stirred around with water and turned into a mushy porridge. Then it's siphoned off, put on rollers and heat supplied, and it's made into layers of paper. When it's in that big blender, they just put in a magnet to suck out whatever metal is in there.
Okay, the colored flyers, they can be with the newsprint, it's just a size thing because they slip or they can't go in the newsprint stream.
Well, we'll put them in the same truck, but we prefer if we can put them in separate piles, and we ask the homeowner to do that, separating into separate piles for us. We realize that this makes a lot of piles in your house, but nobody said this was going to be easy, and I'm afraid that the alternative is probably going to be a lot uneasier. The provincial government has informed the regional district that the rules on landfills are going to be a lot tougher. We have to really watch. There's going to be a lot of liability associated with what we are responsible for throwing away, so we got to be very careful what people are putting into the waste stream.
That just brings up something that I remember not too long ago. The hazardous waste depot, it's a little bit of a sidetrack. Is that still in operation down on Railway Street?
No, we had the last collection, I believe it was in early August, and we haven't been informed from the provincial government whether or not they'll be able to do another one this year. The difficulty, as we understand it, is that they ran out of money for the operation of these depots.
And you won't accept any hazardous commodities, paints, or anything like that, obviously?
Well, we do have some room to store a little bit of usable paint, and I stress the word usable. We don't want paint that's been sitting around for, you know, years. But if it's usable by someone, if you've only just finished a project, and you've still got a quarter of a can or half a can, bring it down, we'll put it on our shelf, and invariably somebody will walk in that needs to do some painting and can get some cut rate paint.
If we can come back to this topic, we got a call. Good evening, Nelson Nightline.
Yes, I have a question regarding the pickup. I understand other communities have pickups. You see it on TV and that. They have their blue boxes and their red boxes out there. And I sort of started trying to organize for recyclables and that, but it's kind of hard to kind of get it and then take it down and doing a lot of that. And now other communities are doing a lot of pickup. Is there no way that can be sort of organized to be done? Because I'm sure a lot of people would really want to get this on the road, but there's just no way other than going down a very busy area to try to park and unload the stuff when you do happen to get it. You know, what's happening there?
Thank you. Okay.
You answered part of the question. The costs make it difficult. Maybe there's an easier place to put the depot.
That's right, exactly, and that leads into we are looking at a different site for a depot and compactor station, and in order that we can make it easier to get to, and also our space at the present recycling building is very, very limited. We have about 4,500 square feet, I believe, and we really need double or triple that to handle a good flow. So it's we are looking actively at trying to expand and because we need to in order to be able to handle the kinds of products that are coming.
You do have the ability to expand where you are on the waterfront.
That's true. I believe the site on the waterfront is about 3 acres, so it's very marginal to be able to expand on that site and put a recycling center down there. There is a difficulty. Again, it's out of the way. There are many, many people who don't want to see that kind of thing on the waterfront because they believe the waterfront should be used for recreation, and so there's been a lot of opposition to that site, and we respect that kind of opposition, and therefore we have looked at other sites.
There's not a lot of, you need flat land, presumably, and preferably land that won't make any leaching, obviously, and there's not a lot of land around. That's
right. There are very, very few sites around. We've been looking for 3, 4, 5 years now. Either they're not flat, they're too expensive to develop, they're too far out of the way to make it handy for either people to bring their garbage or their recyclables. They're up hills so that the city garbage trucks can't economically reach them to unload. All those kinds of things we've had to look at. And basically what we need is a site that's flat, level, fairly close to downtown so it's accessible by people, and one that is large enough to meet our requirements, because we were basically looking at a long-term type of thing.
Great.
So is there another call? Sorry.
Yes.
Good evening, Nelson Nightline.
Yes, I'd like to inquire about box board, like cereal boxes and so on. As a young family, we go through lots of cereal and assorted similar packaging. And I understand that it's not able to be received at the Nelson Recycling Depot. We're fairly new in the community. Is this true? That you don't take the box board?
Michael?
This is true. What we take at the Nelson Recycling Depot is material that we can sell back to the marketplace. And currently there is no market for boxes like this, cereal boxes, or this type of box here. We could, if we were in Vancouver, perhaps collect this material, because the place that we would take it to would be around the corner. They would take it, they wouldn't pay anything for it. But we've been told, for instance, if we were to ship it from here, we'd have to pay the shipping, and then we'd probably have to pay the buyer to take some of it.
However, if we're expected to reduce our consumption by 20% within 3 years and then 50% later on, we can't do that if there's no way to get rid of our box board. Just everything in the grocery store comes packaged that way, and if we are going to reduce the amount in our landfills, we've got to have somewhere to put this stuff. And we just moved here from Burnaby. That's why I asked. We could recycle it there. And if there's such a great quantity out there, we should be looking at doing something with it.
Okay, we'll go offline for another call and let Michael answer that for you. Thank you.
What needs to happen is that the packaging industry needs to realize their responsibility in this situation here. Using excessive amounts of packaging and then asking the taxpayer to get rid of it is not a viable solution to a problem here. We need to have the industry, through this packaging protocol that Hans referred to, accepting some of the responsibilities, starting to package in just the bag. You know, there are cereals now that are available just the bag without the box. And I think we need to pressure the manufacturers to create more of those types of products. And this leads into the discussion of the Green Shopper program, which is being initiated by the BC government over Wadey, Safeway, and the Environmentally Sound Packaging Coalition. And what they are promoting is the same 3 R's hierarchy. When you go shopping, look at ways you can reduce the amount of packaging that you have to throw away.
Before you leave the store, even, you can bring your own plastic bags or bring your own shopping bags. And
that's correct.
Buy bulk and bring in.
That's right. And realizing that every time we buy a product that's over-packaged, we're telling the manufacturer it's okay to make it that way. So some of us are going to have to make hard decisions and say, well, we're not going to buy that. And we're probably going to write a letter to the manufacturer and tell them why. And we've discovered that all it takes is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 15 letters on a subject like this, and manufacturers stand up and take notice.
Why would our caller say she could recycle this product in Burnaby and not here?
Because that place that buys it is right around the corner in Burnaby.
Okay, you answered
Where the
that
shipping
already.
costs.
Yes,
Yeah, there's no
yes,
shipping
it just-
costs
So
involved.
where do you say the tin cans go to a place down just south of the border here? The paper products, what do you do with them? Where do they go?
All of our paper products, cardboard, newspaper, magazines, the office paper that we collect, all goes to Paperboard Industries in Vancouver. And as we mentioned in the clip, they're so impressed with the quality of our material, the separation that we've done. They know that we don't have any contaminants in there, like rocks or the wrong type of paper. We get the shipping cost paid for us, so we get paid FOB our door. Now that was a contract we negotiated this year, so we're able to generate more revenue for our program and have to spend less time writing out checks to freight companies.
You mentioned in the clip too, Michael, kind of an inequitable tax levy to do with garbage and waste, that those who are recycling are being charged the same as those who are creating a lot of garbage. Is there anything being looked at to possibly address that, Hans?
Indeed there is. We're not sure we're going to implement it here, but in Seattle, for example, they'll give you one garbage can and you have to use their approved garbage can free. The second one costs you, $15 a month. That type of thing has been looked at. So in other words, it's to your benefit to minimize the amount of waste that comes out your door. We prefer the carrot approach rather than the whip, and so we haven't looked at things like that yet. However, no one knows. I mean,
What's the overall budget for garbage right now, to bring all the garbage to the landfill and etc.?
okay, quickly speaking, I think you can figure it out. It's $58 a ton and 9,500 tons roughly, say. There we are. We're looking at a budget of somewhat just less than $500,000 a year.
Every year we're putting that, our
Yes.
taxpayers' dollars to bring it.
To deal with our waste.
That's right.
And if we reduce, obviously, that would cut that down and cut our taxes down a little bit. And how much is the recycling depot bringing in and selling its products?
We are going to bring in probably about $50,000 this year, which is an increase from $40,000 last year. But maybe we could go back to one point that the caller previous made, which is wanting us to come to his household to pick up the recyclables. And again, we need to think beyond recycling, and that's why we're having Waste Reduction Month. We can't just believe that recycling is the panacea that's going to solve the problem. It's not. I mean, it costs us $58 a ton to take stuff to the landfill, but it costs us over $200 a ton to recycle right now. Now, we have brought that cost down as more people recycle, but I can tell your audience that, the costs you're paying for recycling are very high because I told you only 50% of the people are doing it. If 100% of the people did it, we could probably bring the cost down to maybe under $100 a ton. But it's not the answer to the problem because it still costs money. And the only thing that doesn't cost money is not having any garbage in the first place. And I think that's the philosophy we've got to have to guide our program, find ways to minimize the whole amount of recyclables or garbage that we make at all.
And I think it's a matter of convenience, right, in terms of our society and lifestyle. And Hans, you said you prefer the carrot than the whip. To have it bylawed the same as a speed limit and whatnot would just encourage those that are just a little bit maybe lazy about addressing the problem, that they would just do it simply because it would be law. Is that?
That may happen. And so there's also been talk of, for example, if tipping fees or extra fees were imposed, of the so-called roadside dump, where people would just drive down the highway and throw out their garbage. That has happened. But however, in Victoria and Vancouver, people don't have that kind of opportunity because there are a great many more eyes watching. However, around here it's still possible. So we have to consider those kinds of
garbage
things.
police.
That's right, yes, exactly. So that's all part of the equation too.
Well, Michael Merrick was telling me this afternoon in Germany, they do have a garbage can outside of everyone's home that it has to be bought from the city. You have to actually buy your garbage can. If the lid is even a little bit higher than it being closed, they won't pick it up because you've created more than your allotment that month. And if they open the lid and see any recyclables, they won't take it away either because it could have gone into other streams. I think there's just so much more we could be doing to make it easier for people to do it as well.
Well, let's go to our streeters and see what people in the street have to say. Maybe they have some good ideas for you to take note of. We're going to cut to our Man in the Street interviews. Mike Evano went out and asked people what they thought about how they could help the recycling situation here.
Well, that's too much. More people should be recycling.
What do you do to...
Paper, glass, flattened cans, pop bottles, plastic bags. I bring them back.
And you make a trip down to the recycling people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably make better use of things that they're throwing away, for start.
What kind of examples could you give of that? Do you do that yourself?
We do it at home. We separate. I don't come from Nelson. I come from the Okanagan Valley. Penticton. No, we set our bottles aside. We take our cardboard and break up the boxes, put them in layers, take them back to the depot and things like that.
They should put in a blue box program like they've got in Trail or any of the other major cities. People have the opportunity to recycle, use newspapers, bottles, everything like that. It's pretty basic, I think.
Do you do any recycling yourself?
Yep.
What do you do?
Newspapers and cans. Like with my business, I recycle all my cans, and that's basically about it. I use the blue box like they have in Trail.
I think probably the most effective method of educating the public is through the public school system. I find that my children are always pressuring me to be more aware of recycling. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Right.
Well, I guess probably looking towards more recycling programs, more extensive than just the basic paper and cans and glass. What else can we do to...
How would you extend them?
Well, it's hard to say. I guess that's something that the coordinators should be trying to figure out. I mean, right now we do, like myself, it's, I do the bottle and the glass, I guess the plastics and the paper and the cardboard and that kind of area.
Yeah. So you would be in favor of an extended program, and you'd support it?
Yeah. Well, I think as long as it was done cost effectively, I think that's the only way we have to go.
Just general recycling. I think the general public is starting to recycle more, and I think that's the only thing I can think of that will reduce it.
What kind of things would you see? Do you recycle yourself?
As much as I can, yeah.
Do you take stuff down to the...
occasionally, yes. Yeah, I stack up newspapers and bundle them. I don't have a lot of things to recycle, but I do what I can.
Good. Well, one idea maybe is restaurants, food preparation places, if they could keep their lettuce stuff aside, could make a nice big pile of compost and some good topsoil, and other things could be maybe burnt to produce power at high temperature.
Okay.
There's got to be something. We can make this one town that is the model of the world.
Great.
I think it could happen.
Okay. What do you do personally to recycling?
Our main thing would be composting. And taking all the bottles back and cans and things like that. We used to take newspapers to the mall, but then the pet store has gone from there.
You find some interesting things come through?
Yeah.
Lots of my favorite interests, like cookbooks and stuff, and glass that people didn't even bring them in. You'd be surprised with stuff that's come through.
So what do you do with the stuff that's really good?
Keep it.
Yeah. And that's okay? Yeah. Keep books and stuff.
Whatever. Yeah. I guess nobody said anything, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah. No, it's useful, isn't it?
Yeah, recycling it.
I work at the Kokanee Country Store Co-op on Baker Street, and they do a lot there within the store. They recycle all the bottles, cans, pop cans, and also people who work there take compost from the store, so none of that goes into the garbage. And also they do a lot of community outreach and teaching.
I was on TV.
Teaching the community about recycling and composting and to reduce garbage.
A year and a half.
And what do you do?
I sort paper and I carry glass. I talk to the people. Various jobs.
You get lots of people coming in?
About 120 to 130 a day. Yeah.
How many people work here?
There's 5 of us.
And 3
counting
volunteers, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
aluminum cans.
And how many of those would you sort out in a day, do you think?
Oh, thousands of it.
Yeah.
Thousands of it, yes. Yes. I do everything. We go in a pickup in a truck, drive a truck, picking up cardboard, bring it in, unload it, feed the press, and sort paper, and help out here on the front. This is where it needed. So we have to rotate around, do it pretty well everything, you know. We just can't be stuck with one job as where we need it, you know. So that's what we have been doing all along.
Is it getting busier?
Yes, it has been busier for last year. It got really busy. About a year ago, it got really busy, and our production is up at least, you know, within a year of 150%, what I heard in a year time. So it has been very busy all along.
Oh, I'm just bringing some cardboard boxes back. Got to keep bringing them down here every week. I don't have room to keep it all at home.
That's your main motivation for recycling?
No, that's not my main motivation. I think my main motivation is to keep us from filling up the landfill.
Welcome back to Nelson Nightline again. We still have on the show Mike Jessen, the Michael Recycle, and that's what you're known as, RDCK Recycling Coordinator, and also joining us now is Janine Keeling-Hemphill. You're on the RDCK's Refuse Commission as the Nelson representative, I understand, Janine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to start off, I guess, with you. You're an avid home recycler as well as, I guess that's what got you into volunteering for the commission, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. I used to do it at home and at work, and then when I was working with Marianne, she encouraged me to participate in the advisory committee, the public advisory committee, for making the solid waste management plan for the area. So I could have some kind of input and also just be there as a representative from the public through all the decisions, because there are hard decisions to be made, as Michael has mentioned.
As a home recycler, how long have you been recycling?
Certainly since I came to Nelson. In fact, maybe that's would be the time when I got my own house. Maybe when I was living with my parents, I didn't do as much. You follow what your parents do. But since I've been out on my own, I've always had a real concern for the environment and for waste of products. Since we live on one planet, we have finite resources, and we hope to have this earth going for many, many years, you have to consider what you're doing every day.
And also you have a young daughter to be a role model for her in terms of what she carries into the future. You were saying just before we went back on air about what your daughter is doing to help you with that, even though she's only 2.
Yeah, it's amazing. I guess just having children, sometimes it makes you aware of the importance of the future. And so that's one way that I'm automatically more in tune with what I'm doing because I think of the future for her. What I'd like to leave the planet, how I'd like to leave the planet when I leave. And so that's an important concern. Also, when I start doing something, for example, composting, she learns very quickly, I mean, as young children can, and I'll accidentally be putting some fruit waste into the garbage, as I've seen my parents do, as I had done for many years, and she'll know right now that it's compost, and she'll say that's for soil. As a 2-year-old already can learn just like that, if you set an example.
Well, you're a teacher as well, Janine, and so I know that the school systems, the same as at home, can and should be doing so much more. How active are the recycling programs or recycling awareness within our school system within this district as well?
Well, I'm not in this district teaching right now. All I can say is I know even when we asked for public input for the different stages of making the solid waste management plan, a custodian came and wrote an essay about the waste and how it's very important. Kids want to recycle, they just need to learn how. So I don't know from teachers' perspective, but I see in the school system that there are people seriously interested, and there's an awful lot of waste generated from schools that could be put to good use and could be reduced as well.
What's happening in the district? Michael, have you been talking to School District 7?
We've been very active on a committee with the school district, encouraging the schools to invite me to the schools to help students start recycling programs. We've had a lot of success at schools like W.E. Graham in Spilka. An environment club in the school took it upon themselves to start recycling in the community, collecting material, bringing it to the school to an unused portion of a building where they could store it. And then we've had the village of Spilka volunteered to use one of their trucks and drivers to bring it into our depot. That's probably a leading example in this district. You've got other schools that are doing some paper recycling. A lot of it really depends, though, on the administration and the teachers in the school. If the teachers are motivated enough, then they will get it happening in their classrooms. I can think of Wayne Prentice, for instance, at Central School, who has done a lot over the last 2 years to get his classrooms recycling. But sometimes in a school where it may not be a high priority, and we have to realize that schools are burdened with a lot of things they're supposed to teach these days. And we also have to realize that it doesn't really appear like recycling and the environment is really yet incorporated into the curriculum. So some of it's going to come quickly and some of it's going to come slowly. The provincial government has an eco-education program which just happens to be right in our neighborhood right at this moment. They've been out at Selmo Elementary on Monday. They were at Rosemont today, and they're going to be at Central School tomorrow. Those are schools that have requested the eco-education program to come to their school, and these are young people who help the students with little projects like how to start worm composting and how to get recycling and how it can happen. So these are some initiatives that are going on.
SD7 has hosted an environmental conference the past number of years, and I would anticipate that's to help educate educators to bring it on down the system that way. Is that...
We have Stephen Lewis coming in this year, I believe. He's going to be talking here.
I think we better check, but
he's going to be here. The conference itself is
unfortunately, with
but he'll still be talking. One of the people on the street suggested turning it into electricity, some of the garbage. What does it take to do that? Do you have any idea? I mean, are we big enough to have a generating plant with our garbage? Is that feasible? Do you have any idea?
Well, there are engineers that tell you can do a lot of things, and if you're familiar with what's happening in Spokane, they have what they call a waste-to-energy plant where a substantial portion of the waste stream is burned. The difficulty is that some of the stuff that is best to burn, i.e. paper, is also some of the easiest and best to recycle. So you've got a system that really works against one another there. And I think we also need to realize that a lot of these waste materials that we are currently throwing away are really resources. We like to call them resources going in the wrong direction. Sending them to the landfill is not the answer. Sending them to an incinerator is not the answer. They need to, if they can be recycled, and they need to be reused, and they need to be reduced as much as possible. And what happens when you start, especially something like an incinerator, you put in place a system that, in order to operate efficiently, requires a certain volume of material constantly. So if people started to reduce the amount of waste they made, it would reduce what the incinerator could burn. It wouldn't operate as efficiently, and after a certain volume drop, the whole thing would be uneconomic. So it's moving in the wrong direction to consider that as an alternative.
We only have a short amount of time left, Michael, and we wanted to show the symbols and whatnot to the viewers, because there's a great deal, I think, of confusion out there in the public as to what exactly is recycled and what isn't.
Well, we'd really encourage people to pick up one of these pamphlets at Safeway or Overweighty, especially this month. And it does have a section in the pamphlet on environmental labeling, and there's a lot of misinformation about labeling, and which causes confusion to the public. Now this symbol, for instance, when you see that on there...
Which camera? Can we get a close-up of? Which was that yours, Tony? This way, Mike? Okay, no.
Okay, that symbol means that a product is recyclable. It doesn't mean that it's made from recycled material whatsoever. What you have, if you're interested in one that's made from recycled material, you look for this one. And quite often, in the interior part of the arrows here, there'll be a number like 30 or 50, which will indicate what portion of that packaging material is made from recycled material. We're still developing the labeling program that will make it easy for the public to understand exactly what it is they're buying. And one of the better ones is the federal government environmental choice program. If you find a product with this label on it, you know that it has gone through a testing process and it is recommended for purchase. But if you just have that ordinary recycle symbol without it being on the dark background, it doesn't really mean anything. And if people are interested, there is a video that they can get from Safeway or from Overweighty or from the BC Ministry of Environment called We Can Make a Difference. And I highly recommend it. It's a short 15-minute video which will really bring home the packaging dilemma to the public and what they can do about it.
Okay, great. We've got one last call. Good evening, Nelson Nightline.
Good evening. My name is Brian Craig, and I work for Kokanee Manufacturing Company. I find that a lot of what you're saying tonight on this program is very farcical. We did everything in our power to recycle our products, waste products that were generated through the shipping and receiving that we did. However, in order to live up to the standards that your recycling depot required, we virtually had to turn over to them, for example, if we want photocopy paper, hey, give them a box of photocopy paper and they give us back a box of recycled photo. You simply aren't prepared to take shipping cartons or the waste products from shipping cartons and recycle them. And I'd like you to address that situation.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure that business does more, is producing more waste products for the landfill than any homeowners are ever going to do.
Okay, we'll let Michael respond.
The caller is correct. About 50 to 55% of the waste stream is generated by what's called the industrial, commercial, institutional sector, and about 45% by the homeowners. We do have a very active corrugated cardboard pickup program in Nelson where we go down every single day down the alleys to pick up the cardboard. I hear what the caller is saying, but what we're asking him to do is basically just take out any styrofoam and plastic, and I really don't think that that's too hard. We already have about 4 people at the recycling depot who are doing the sorting. If we're prepared to pay a much higher cost to have more sorters, then we can do that. But I think what we're trying to do is really encourage as much individual responsibility in this thing. You know, we've asked society to take this problem on and you deal with it. But I think what we're asking people to do is realize that they can make a difference.
Well, make it easier. The taxpayer is paying the freight one way or the other, and you're just asking this caller to make it a little bit easier to do that, or else the costs are even going to go up more. You're saying $200 a ton now. It's costing right now, and you're trying to bring it down to $100 a ton. And if you have oddball products and things inside it, I guess it just will make the cost go higher.
That everything we can do as individuals certainly helps out. You did want to mention about the catalogs before we go off air.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we do have in our pamphlet that we could take catalogs, and that was when we printed it up. But unfortunately, since then, our buyer has told us that Sears catalogs and Home Hardware catalogs, for instance, are of such poor quality paper that they need to be left out. And people say, well, what can I do then to as an alternative? And I would suggest, let's take them back to Home Hardware, let's take them back to Sears, and say, look, you people put these things out, put in place a program to deal with them, because the marketplace hasn't developed a program yet.
Okay, we just got a couple more minutes. Is there any final comments either one of you would like to make? We've got 1 minute before we go off air.
Oh, I'd just like to say I agree with Michael. There are hard decisions to be made. As a younger mother, I know cloth diapers were a little bit of a harder decision, but when you consider that you also, with some of these things, often employ another person in the community, Deb's Diaper Service, you get the benefits back in your community. Moreover than just not having so much waste, you also employ people and make it a better place to live.
So we can each do a little bit more. And that's, I think, the challenge you throw out between communities, we throw out to each one of us that live within this region.
Well, thank you both for being here. It's been interesting. I hope that we can live up to your expectations, and for 95, And we'll keep posted on what's going on here, Michael.
Our own expectations,
Our own
right?
Benefit of all.
Yes.
Again, thank you both.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank
So,
you again on such short notice.
Are you in the mall this week as well, telling people what to do?
We're going to be going to the Kokanee Co-op store next Tuesday and next Saturday for in-store demonstrations and tours of the products that they have on their shelves with recommendations as what to buy.
Great.
We forgot to mention about next
week's show.